I have got a question for you guys. What do you class as the ultimate work van? Would it be a Volkswagen Caddy, or could it be a Ford Transit Custom, something bigger? And I suppose that all depends on the application that you need the van for. In this video, I'm going to set us with a £5,000 budget to build my ultimate work van. And would you believe it, it's got nothing to do with my current Volkswagen Caddy. Let me explain. So, this is my current van. It's a 2011 Volkswagen Caddy Maxi, and it's just done 100,000 miles, which is relatively low for the year. It's an ex-British Gas van, hence the colour, and it's actually been serviced and maintained all its life. That is one of the main reasons why I brought the van in the first place. It also has Volkswagen Sirocco alloys on it, and it's lowered, giving it that really nice stance. With lowering does come a few problems. We can't carry much weight in the back, but luckily with my businesses I don't have to carry a lot of weight, which is why I love a lowered van. The van is currently sign written all the way around with my branding, which is the Dank Group. As you know, I've got Dank number plates, we've also got Dank window spraying, and quite a few other different businesses that all fall under Dank. The one problem with all this is I'm actually rebranding all my businesses under one name, which is Vision, as you've learned from our previous videos. So at the moment, none of this branding on my VW Caddy makes sense, which is one of the reasons why we're not going to be using this van for our challenge. You're probably sat there thinking, well Jack, why don't you just rip the vinyl off and get your new sign writing on? Surely that's cheaper than spending £5,000 on a new van and modifying it. And you would be right with that. However, this VW Caddy has got a few other dark secrets that I think I should probably tell you about. This van has got a lot of rust on both sills, and I think it's going to cost a lot of money to get this rust sorted and resprayed so it's back looking like new. And as well as the rust, it's actually got a lot of cosmetic dents, and that's not just on the rear, it's all the way around the van. And although the van's got rust and a lot of dents, you're probably still thinking, well, is that enough to get rid of it? Well, this bit here, this is a big clue as to why I'm going to get rid of this van. I've actually had to have it towed in the past week. And let me explain what's gone on. So believe it or not, a week ago, this van wasn't actually running. It actually cut out on my partner when she was sat at a set of lights. She was waiting for the lights to change colour. Next thing you know, the van just decided to go boom, cut out, engine no starting. So I had to get the van recovered, which is why the towing eye is missing out the front. And I took it down to my mechanic Ash, and he looked at it, looked at the fault codes, and it wasn't really bringing up too much other than to do with the fuel system. We had a code for the fuel pressure sensor, which was initially what we thought was wrong. We gave that a go, brought new fuel sensors, didn't make any difference. He then thought that it might have been the fuel rail. So, rather than buying a new one and spending a lot more money, I managed to get a second-hand one off eBay. We changed that fuel rail, and that didn't make any difference. So the only other thing we could find was the pressure getting to the injectors. Now, we thought initially it might have been the injectors because they're very common on this model of van. It's a 1.6 TDI. Before we started replacing the injectors, which cost a lot of money, we thought we'd try the fuel pump as a bit of a last resort. And hey presto, when we did the fuel pump, the van actually started. And I thought this was the end of the saga. However, it was now throwing a new code up for a blocked DPF. Now, for me to get the DPF chopped out of this and mapped out is about £300, and it's even more expensive for me to actually have it regenerated. So I was at the point where I just kept throwing hundreds and hundreds of pounds at this van, and I thought enough's enough. This van has made me enough money, it doesn't owe me anything. Let's just sell it as it is, running but in limp mode, and we know it needs a DPF doing, which someone else can easily do after they've taken it off me, and I'm then going to put that money into a new van. Now you're probably wondering, well, what van have you brought, Jack? Let me show you. So here it is. It actually looks really nice on the videos, but it does need a few bits doing to it. This is my 2014 1.6 TDI Transit Connect. And it grieves me to say that I've not got a custom, because that's what I was trying to buy for us. But the more I've read into customs with the wet belt issues, it's just put me off totally. So I've actually gone for a chain driven 1.6 TDI, which are meant to be bulletproof. But it's funny that we say that, because this van has actually had a brand new engine in it, and that's one of the reasons why I brought it. I'm hoping that it's future-proofed itself with this new engine. It's on 92,000 miles, which is pretty low, and I think it's got a lot of life left in it. It does need quite a bit doing to it. So for £4,000 on the dot, I actually think this van was an absolute bargain. After looking on Auto Trader, they're going for between £5,000 and £5,500, which gives us that wiggle room to actually start customising it. But before we do, I actually ran into a problem this morning when I was moving this van to where it is now. Let me show you. So, I actually just went to start filming this video. I wanted to move the vans about to do some nice shots on the drive, and we've already got our first problem with the new van. As you can probably tell, the bonnet's already up. But if we get in, I've just gone to start it, and the battery's totally dead on it. So, the first thing I think I'm going to have to do this morning is actually go to Euro Car Parts now and get a new battery for the van. Now Brandon, who I brought the van from, did say that the battery might be no good. He charged it up for me and the van has been working fine the past few days, but I think this battery is totally shot. So what I'm going to do, go to Euro Car Parts, get a new battery and hopefully get it installed on the van to get us at least on the road again. Okay, so we've just been and picked up a brand new battery from Euro Car Parts, and I'm hoping that that is going to be the one. I've brought it off the reg of the van, so they assure me it should be right. My next problem is going to be how to get to this fella. I've taken off the covers, but it still looks like it's going to be really tight to clear on the top of the van, so I've got a feeling that this airbox might need to come off in order to access the battery. Until I start wiggling it about and disconnecting the terminals, I don't think I'm really going to know what needs to come out, but I've got a gut feeling the airbox possibly. So I'm going to set you up on the tripod now and we're going to have a look at getting the battery out of the van. So in order to get this new battery in place, we first had to remove the old battery, and to do that we had to remove the battery holder, which consisted of 2 bolts right at the back of the engine bay, which was actually seating the battery in the correct position. It's at times like this where I really wish I had an electronic screwdriver to get all this stuff off. I've actually seen some of the other lads on YouTube using the Milwaukee electric screwdrivers that look really good. I think I'm going to invest soon if we do continue with the car and van content. One of those screwdrivers I think is the equivalent of having like a multi-tool in your tool set. It's just so handy to have for a lot of different situations. And one thing you might not be seeing on the camera is actually how far back these bolts are for the brace for the battery. They're super fiddly, but after a lot of threading, I think we're nearly there. There's one bolt out, and one more to go. Unfortunately, this is not my idea of entertaining content. However, I've got to get the van started in order to take it places to get more modifications done to it later on in the video. So you're just going to have to bear with. So, just got off the phone to Ash, my mechanic. Normally he does a lot of the work for me, but I thought, you know what, battery's going to be fairly easy. Well, turns out it's not quite so straightforward. We've got to get the airbox off, and then once the airbox is out the way, we've got to get the casing cover for the battery off as well, and then that will allow the battery to slide forward, allowing me to access the negative terminal right at the back of this engine bay here. So, yeah, let's get the airbox off, get the battery slid forward and get it changed.
Down cars in the mud, and half of them are white.
Okay, so I'm just going to show you. So this is the airbox, that's now out of the way, we've disconnected it all. This is the front of the battery case. We can now bring that down, and hopefully once I move this out of the way, we should then be able to slide the battery forward and get to that negative terminal right at the back of the engine bay. drop the new battery in, and then just reverse that whole process again. And fingers crossed, the van will start. There you go, so battery slid out, and we've now got access to this negative terminal. Use a 10mm spanner to loosen that off. And with a little bit of luck, this battery should now come out the van. Old battery out, new battery going back in. You know, when I say this battery cover is the most awkward thing I've ever come across. Crazy. It wasn't, I noticed it wasn't in the right position when I took it off originally, and I can fully understand why. But with a little bit of persistence, I think we've just changed the battery. That is the battery replaced. But the question is, has it done the trick? Let's find out. Cross all your fingers. See what lights we've got. Not a lot. Radio's on. Oh, first time. That is a win. Now that the battery's fixed, we can actually start it, run it and drive it. And before we start doing any other modifications to it, I thought I'd take it for an MOT because it was due at the end of the month. I had the tyres changed yesterday on the van, and I thought that would be the only thing that needed doing to it. However, I was absolutely wrong. It's actually just come back that it's failed on rear discs and rear pads. Now, I have never fitted rear discs and pads to a van on my life, and that goes for any car. I normally always pay my mechanic to do it for me, but now we've got the channel, I think it's a really good excuse to learn. So the next thing we're going to do on this van, before we start customising it and doing aesthetics to it, is get it mechanically sound. We need to get rear discs and pads on the van right now and send it back for a retest on the MOT so it's fully road legal. What can possibly go wrong? Worst case, we're going to have no brakes on the van. It's not like it's going to cause a crash. And oh God, did that saying come back to bite me in the ass. I thought this was going to be a fairly straightforward job. I'd watched the YouTube video on exactly how to do it, but as usual on YouTube, they make it look easy. But you're about to find out what happened. And well, up until this point, I thought my new career of being a mechanic on a driveway was going really well. We'd managed to fit the battery fairly easily, and I thought, you know what, we're going to get these rear discs and pads fitted ourselves rather than taking it to a mechanic to do the job. And everything was going swimmingly well until this point you're about to watch. So, that was an absolute nightmare to get out. The bolts themselves are actually in really good condition. They were just a little bit stiff and really awkward to access. But they are all now out, and hopefully this caliper should wiggle out of the... Is it just me, or do you always find when you watch somebody else's video online, they always make it look really easy? I hate portraying that in our videos. Like, it's not easy to do it yourself. You can do it, and you will do it, but it really is not as easy as it looks online. And I find that with any tutorial I watch. They have a 2-minute video and they go, oh yeah, you do this, 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 this and this, and it's done. And when you try and do it yourself, it's like an hour-long job. You will get there, you just got to keep going. So I'm thinking this brake caliper's not coming away from the disc for a really stupid reason. I've still got the handbrake on in the van. Let me go and take the handbrake off. And so with some very gentle persuasion from the good old hammer, we were actually at a point where we could remove the old disc and pads. Cause I don't know if you want it or not. Picking up my body, you just let go of me. Cause I don't know if I'm what you want. So we actually need to push the piston back to fit the new pads. The new pads are a lot thicker than the old ones because obviously they haven't worn down yet. So this piston needs to be pushed out to give more space to fit the new pads in. I did think one step ahead and I went to Screwfix and I brought kind of like, it looks like a chain tool off a BMX, and it actually pushes the piston out to allow you to make room to fit the new pads. Never used one of these before, but let's give it a go. The way this tool works is quite an easy concept. There's two pins that lock onto the piston. You wind them clockwise and it winds the piston back, allowing space for the new pads and disc to sit in place around the caliper. The only problem was, no matter how much I wound this tool, it just didn't open the piston. I even got my dad on board to check it wasn't something stupid I was doing wrong, but we couldn't figure it out. So I rang Ash, my mechanic. So is it best for me to put it all back together and bring it down to you?
Either that, or come and get the tool off me. You can borrow my tool if you want.
I've got it all apart on the drive, like it's all ready to go. I thought this kit would do it. To be honest, it looked right, but it's just the pins that are off.
Yeah.
Can I pop down and grab it quickly and I'll bring it back to you?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, man.
Sound. Alright, so we're down in a bit.
Alright,
We've brought this kit from Screwfix, and you release the pressure of the piston by twisting it, not pushing it. So on earlier vans you push them to make it wider. On these vans you have to twist them. It's got like a thread almost, and because these pins don't line up, I don't know if you can see them on the camera, because they're too wide, I can't get them in to release the piston to make it wider. But I've just spoke to Ash, my mechanic, and he's kindly offered to borrow us the right kit to do it, so we can continue doing it ourselves. So what I'm going to do is put my tools away, go down there, pick up this kit, and then come straight back to you. So wish me luck, I'll be back in 5 minutes. So I've just got back from Ash's, and this is the kit that we got from Screwfix that's too wide. He has borrowed us a full kit with a lot of different options, and they actually have left and right-handed threads, which I actually never knew. We need to use that kit to push this piston back so we can install the new pads. And I think while we're here, it's a really good time to actually show you how bad these old pads were and why they failed the MOT. So if you can tell from there is literally nothing left on those pads. And it's the same with the discs, there's a huge lip on them. If you were to take a new disc, you'd see how much thicker it is. And if you look at a new pad, you'll also see how much is left on those compared to that fella. So, the next thing is, let's try and find one of these kits that fits onto there. We still don't know if it's left-handed or right-handed thread, but I'm sure we'll soon find out. Let's get one of the kits on, get that piston pushed back, and get these new pads and discs into place. So after going all the way down to Ash's unit, we actually then thought that we had the correct tool, but I was doing exactly the same process as the first tool, and I was getting no further forward. It just wouldn't push the piston back, and I couldn't get my head around why it wasn't working. I think it's fair to say I'm absolutely bamboozled as to how this tool works. I have used tools like this all my life to remove chains out of bikes, and I know it works on the same sort of concept, but do you think I can get it to work? Just doesn't seem possible. This is why I'm not cut out to be a mechanic. Like, I love problem solving when it comes to DIY, stuff like this, but you know mechanics, right? I'd rather pay someone £40 to do this than sit here for 3 hours on my drive pulling my hair out. Crazy, it's absolutely crazy. And it was fair to say at this point I had lost my head. I just didn't understand how to release this piston to give us some more room to install those pads. Right, that's it. I've had a good go and it is beyond me. I'm going to make the decision. I'm going to put the wheel back on. I'm going to drive down to Ash, my mechanic, and I'm going to get him to do it for the £40 he wants to do it. That is worth every single penny in my opinion. Sometimes in life, no matter how hard you try, you just have to admit defeat. Mechanics are professionals for a reason. They are going to find a way, a route and a cause to the problem. Once we'd got the disc assembled again and the wheel was back on the van, I took it down to Ash's to try and find out what was causing this issue. And well, it turns out actually it wasn't my fault. Oh my god, what a day it's been. What started off with something so simple actually turned out to be a nightmare. So we have now got the van back from ashes, and we've actually had the discs and pads installed, and it turns out we actually had a seized rear caliper as well, which is why I couldn't quite get the tool that he'd given us to bite onto the piston and actually make it wider. It was seized, closed, in place. So we've actually had to have a new caliper as well. And as you can probably tell, the sun's about to go down, so I haven't got a lot of time to film this. But yeah, now that we know the van is mechanically sound, we can actually take it for a retest on the MOT, which I've just booked in for a few days' time. But in the meantime, I think that we now start the modifications on the van, which is going to be the fun part. You'll have to wait for that to happen because it's going to be in the next video. Just want to say thanks so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's great to be back in front of the camera. I have had a month or so off and I feel like I needed it. But yeah, we are back. I can't tell you exactly when the next video is going to be, but it will be in the next week or so. If you've enjoyed it, hit that like button. Click the subscribe. We have gone from over 3,000 subscribers to now down to 2,950 because I don't think people have been wanting to stay subscribed and I've not been posting anything, which I totally understand. But if you have come back, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.
You got me feeling like a firebolt high in the sky, looking like a thunderstorm, boy.